Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai. 22nd Avenue, where Hare Krishna movement began. Ki. Jai. Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki. Jai. Really happy about this assembly of devotees. I hope you have a nice time associating with one another and also getting the association of His Holiness Romapada Swami. Really happy that Maharaj came today. I haven't seen Maharaj here for a long time, and ultimately Krishna's arrangement is mysterious, and I'm happy for his arrangement today. Many of you know Maharaj because that's why I see some of you here today. Who's here? Anyone here for the first time? Okay, so we have a couple. You're familiar with Hare Krishna movement now, and have you been to Hare Krishna program before? No. Okay. What's your name?
Penny.
Penny. Okay, thanks. My name's Atma. I'm organizing this, and
Thank you so much for organizing.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming. And we have different people, different persons learned in the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, and which this Hare Krishna movement is based on. We give a class here each Saturday, and so today it's a special guest that we have, Romapada Swami. Romapada Swami, many of you know, has been a disciple of Srila Prabhupada for now going on into the 6th decade, and he's follows Srila Prabhupada's teachings, especially the way that Maharaj likes to do so is by spreading Krishna consciousness, encouraging others to spread Krishna consciousness, and explaining and following himself how the most important, paramount to being able to do those things is to practice Krishna consciousness very carefully with dedication oneself. And so in the course of his spiritual career doing just that, Maharaj has been leading devotees, especially in New York and in many other locales like Chicago, Delhi, so many places, St. Louis, so many places in China, although that's not always talked about, all over the world. And but here, Maharaj has been in managerial positions such as called the GBC, or also taking disciples as a service to Prabhupada to teach them so they can benefit from serving Srila Prabhupada too. So I think I won't say more than that, but for the schedule, we'll have our class where if you like to follow along with the topic of the class, as every week what we do here is in this program we study the Bhagavad Gita verse by verse in order each week. So today we happen to be on the first verse of chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita. Some furniture has been moved around here in the course of the renovation project. We don't have our book table now, but if you have a phone with you and you'd like to follow along through looking at your phone, the page is vedabase.io. Veda is spelled V-E-D-A, and base like baseball. Vedabase.io, and there's a link there to various important books by Srila Prabhupada, including Bhagavad Gita, and from there chapter 8, and from there text 1. And if you're looking for it, like if you've not been to that page before, you can, Penny, if you want, you can ask for assistance from someone like him, because he can do everything. And you already found it. Fantastic. So go to chapter 8 and then scroll down to 8 and yeah. And then the first verse, click on that. There you go. Okay, so we'll have the class, and then after the class we have another kirtan, maybe per Maharaj, this is discretion, but sometimes that happens around 7-ish. And then we'll have I know several devotees brought nice vegetarian dinner that they prepared for the pleasure of Lord Krishna. So they brought prasadam, vegetarian dinner for all of us. So that will be at the end. So thanks a lot, and I'll hand this over to Maharaj.
This introduction.
It's okay here, Maharaj?
I'm okay.
Okay.
I can't see you all in the back. Can you see me? Yeah? You're good. Okay. We'll begin with offering obeisances or prana mantras to Srila Prabhupada. You can say along with me. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 8, text number 1. I think a good thing to do is the context of Bhagavad Gita and then the sequence of the chapters of Bhagavad Gita, and then we'll go to chapter 8. Now, many of you know all these things, but especially for the newer guests, do this quickly. Bhagavad Gita, here's the cover, is in the midst of a big, epic history of Greater India from 5,000 years ago, history, and without going into details because the Mahabharata is very thick, the lineage of kings is enunciated, and then a certain period of time during Krishna's time, that period of time, the kings on this side and the kings on that side had a conflict, like who's going to rule the world. And there was a wish to not have a conflict, and attempts were made to make peaceful settlement, and the conclusion was no peaceful settlement because one of the parties didn't want a peaceful settlement. So there was a war, and there was war with rules because that's the procedure at that time. And so there are two chief persons that are part of Bhagavad Gita are the speaker, Krishna, and the person who's hearing from Krishna, Arjuna. And they're on a chariot. Krishna, without all the details, Krishna made a commitment that he wouldn't fight. Then Arjuna said, no problem, let's just be together. All your armies can be with the other side, but just let's be together because they're dear friends. So Krishna became the chariot driver, and that's what the cover picture shows. Krishna is the chariot driver, and the chief protagonist, the chief warrior, is Arjuna. But before the battle, the chariot was drawn between the two armies, and the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, I'm going to go through this 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita really fast. First chapter, Arjun sees who's there and says, yikes. For this reason, that reason, the other reason, the other reason, the other reason, I can't go forward with this. I shall not fight, and he drops his weapons. And more conversation, more conversation. He turns to Krishna, end of chapter 1. I don't know what's best for me to do. I don't know what my duty is in this circumstance. You please instruct me. So the mood shifts from friends to an instructor or guru, and the student, his dear devotee, Arjuna. And then there's another 5 chapters. So there's 18 chapters in Bhagavad Gita total. 6 plus 6 plus 6 generally equals 18. So the first 6 are the introduction chapter, and then systems of yoga. It doesn't teach yoga asanas, but it teaches principles. And without going into it too much, but just to give the picture, the context, Krishna's teaching Sankhya yoga, which is the study of matter and spirit, and that we belong to the category of spirit. We don't belong to the category of matter. And then to support that principle, then one has to have intelligence to guide the mind so you don't misidentify with matter, and therefore another system of yoga is given, Buddhi yoga, or yoga of intelligence. And then to facilitate intelligence, there's detachment from the fruits of work, karma yoga. Karma, everyone knows karma. And karma yoga is perform duties as they're to be done, but don't be attached to the fruits of those duties, because they belong to someone else. Ultimately, they belong to the Supreme. Surrendering the fruits of your work to the Supreme, karma yoga. When one becomes proficient at karma yoga, it leads to another yoga system, Gyan yoga. You get the picture, it's a yoga ladder. And then the meditational system. And then the conclusion of chapter 6 is the topmost of all the yoga systems is 2 things, bhakti, where the mind goes to the Supreme and the senses are engaged in service of the Supreme. So what the body does and what the mind does in devotion to the Supreme. And then there's the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. That's chapter 7 through chapter 12. We're going to be discussing chapter 8, so we'll come back. But the middle 6 chapters are focusing on how to do bhakti. It's a how-to. And then the conclusion, the final 6 chapters, are saying what was said in the first 12 chapters again more thoroughly. For example, the system of where we belong to the category of matter, the category of spirit and not matter, chapter 13 goes into like in depth, matter and spirit, matter and spirit, matter and spirit, divisions of matter and spirit. We belong to the category of spirit, and how to engage in what was said earlier in that consciousness, and so forth. There's many other sections to the final 6 chapters. The reason for going through all of that is chapter 8 is part of that middle 6. So somehow today is chapter 8, text number 1, and chapter 8, text number 1 follows from chapter 7, somehow. And the concluding section of chapter 7, I'm going to read before we read the first verse of chapter 8, but there's some language that people that are not familiar with Bhagavad Gita or not familiar with the Vedic context of things may not know what they mean. So the first verse of chapter 8 is Arjuna asking, what's this one, what's that one, what's the other one? What are those? There's 5, and then verse number 2, which is next week, is another one of the items. Our acharyas, our teachers that comment on all of this, they commonly put 1 and 2 together. I'm assigned number 1, so just take a peek over at text number 2. But there's, I'll read the translation, so if you've got your books out or your phones out or something. Here's the last 2 verses of chapter 7. So remember, this is the purpose of chapter 7 through 12 is how to perform bhakti. So the goal is bhakti, and then there's the how to. So what is it? What does it look like? Verse number 28 and 29, translation. Whoops, 29 and 30. Intelligent persons, you're all intelligent persons, who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death, take refuge in me in devotional service. They are actually Brahman, with a capital B, because they entirely know everything about transcendental activities. So in first verse of chapter 8, Arjuna's going to ask, what's Brahman? I mean, it's not like he doesn't know and hasn't heard it. He's just asking for a refresh. So we get a refresh in chapter 8, text 1. Then the final verse of chapter 7, those in full consciousness of me. That's bhakti. In full consciousness of me, the Supreme Lord, to be, who knows me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of the material manifestation, the governing principle of material manifestation, the governing principle of the demigods, the governing principle of all methods of sacrifice. That makes 3 more terms. First was Brahman, and then comes Adibhuta, then comes Adidaiva, and then comes Adiyagya. So material nature, Bhuta, demigods, Daiva, and sacrifices, Yagya. That makes 3 plus 1 makes 4, right? There's 1 more. And of all methods of sacrifice can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, at the time of death. So Krishna's given some language. Now, it's not that Arjuna doesn't know, it's that we don't know. And so he's asking in the first verse of chapter 8, what are all these things? So now we're going to first verse of chapter 8. Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What are fruitive activities? What is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me. So the Sanskrit terms, you can look at the verse in Sanskrit. Adhyatma, that's what is the self, Atma. Adibhutam, that's fruitive activity, material nature. Where am I going? Kim karma, Adibhutam, Adidaivam. So Daiva means the demigods. We're going backwards. The material manifestation, adi bhutam, and then adhyatma, the self, and then karma, fruit of activities. So there's this list. I'm going to read the purport. These are our 5 items which Arjuna wants clarification about. In this chapter, purport, in this chapter, Lord Krishna answers different questions from Arjuna, beginning with what is Brahman. The Lord also explains karma, fruit of activities, devotional service in yoga principles, and devotional service in its pure form. The Srimad Bhagavatam explains that the absolute, supreme absolute truth is known as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. In addition, the living entity, the individual soul, is also called Brahman. Arjuna also, so there's a question. Is Brahman meaning the living entity? Or is Brahman here meaning an aspect of the Supreme, as in Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan? So for our newer people, what's all that? This is Bhagavad Gita, and Brahman, in principle, means spirit, because we already went through that. There's matter and there's spirit, and we belong to the category of spirit, so Brahman means spirit. But then there's also the Supreme Brahman, or Para Brahman, or Supreme Spirit. So he wants to know, Arjuna wants to know, when you're using this term Brahman from chapter 7, what does it mean? Does it mean this or that? Does it mean an aspect of the Supreme, or does it mean the tiny spirit soul? Because a tiny spirit soul is part of the Supreme. The classic examples, a drop of water from the ocean and the ocean, or a particle of gold from a gold mine and the gold mine. So the gold particle is qualitatively the same as the gold in the gold mine, but it's tiny. Or the drop of water from the ocean is tiny compared to the ocean, but qualitatively the same. So one can use the term Brahman for meaning the drop or the ocean, or the part and the whole, or the individual and the Supreme, because qualitatively they're the same. And one who is, back to the previous end of the previous chapter, one who is situated in Krishna consciousness, that individual, one who is conscious of the Supreme, they're truly Brahman because they're acting that way. That consciousness is that way, and they're acting that way, and their life is that way, and therefore they're entitled to this nomenclature, Brahman. Now, all living entities that aren't with that understanding, there are lots of living entities that don't understand who they are. They are also Brahman but covered. All living entities, a bug, a tree, a microbe, anything live, that's spirit covered by matter of different qualities or different characteristics. So they're also Brahman, but the one who is what was being said previously is one who is truly can be called Brahman is one who is situated in consciousness of the Supreme. They're uncovered Brahman. So that's the Adhyatma. That's the soul. Atma means soul. So that's the first little terminology, the Brahman terminology. And then karma, or fruitive activities. Everyone has something of an idea of what karma is. Karma means two things, what you do and the reactions for what you do. what you do and what comes back to you from what you do. Good karma, bad karma comes back from good actions, bad actions. That's what you do, and then it comes back. So karma is both sides. However, there's a higher understanding of karma yoga that we touched on in chapter 3 Bhagavad Gita. That is, where you have, because of having a body and a mind, a psychophysical nature, there are suitable activities for each of us according to that covering. And when you do those according to the codes of Dharma, what's to be done, what's not to be done, I've got this body and I've got this mind, if I follow the do's and the don'ts and offer the result to the Supreme, that's karma yoga. That's really what karma is. Prescribed duty. Karma yoga is prescribed duty offered to the Supreme. So when you, Krishna, Arjuna's asking, when you say karma, could you elaborate a little bit? What do you mean? Because it can mean different things. It's slightly varied. And then comes the third term. Brahma, Adhyatma, so what is spirit, what is the nature of the self or the soul, the nature of karma, Adibhutam, that's material nature or the material manifestation. Adi, so there's a nice explanation of the word Adi. They sound similar. There's ADI, and then there's ADHI. Adi. Adi very simply means original, like Adi Purusha. Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami, the original Purusha, the original person. And Adi, ADHI, means a controller or a cause or a governing principle of something. So it's an adjective modifying a noun. And the noun, what's karma, or what's the living entity, what's the living entity, what's the demigods. So higher beings than human are demigods, they're controllers of material nature. And what's the adhi, ADHI, of those folks, of those entities? What's the controlling or governing principle? So the previous chapter, Krishna said, I am that Adi Daivam. I am that Adi Bhutam. He is the controller or governing principle of material nature. Adi Atma, I'm the controlling principle of all living entities. So he's got a big service. But that's Krishna consciousness, or that's Bhakti Yoga, is when you offer to the Supreme, you have a clear idea what is the Supreme. It's very clear that sometimes it's not so clear. Sometimes it's not so clear when you ask, try it sometime. You meet somebody, are you a spiritual person? Yes. And if the answer is yes, could you tell me what's your understanding of the Supreme? Or what is God? And you get like a blank stare, or you get different answers. It's not clear. It can be clear, and so in order for the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita to have devotional service, the topmost system of yoga, there has to be clarity of unto whom are you being devoted, because you can be devoted to all kinds of things. Easy. We're all because here's go back a bunch. Every living entity by nature is serving someone. There isn't an exception because it's the nature of the soul. We're serving someone. The someone may be even my senses, but I'm serving my senses, or serving my mind that's directing my senses, or serving a person, someone that I say as a friend, or my parents, or a lover, or something, my dog. We're serving someone. Just a little comical note. During the heyday of car production, Henry Ford had partnership with a man that made designs for chassis of Ford motor cars. And that man that was designer of the Ford, or of the chassis, his name was Fisher. So Fisher and Ford. So he was not married, and he had a mansion, and at the end of his life, since he didn't have children, he in his will, he willed the property to his dog. And that was a big scene in the courtroom. Who does this property belong to? Yeah, the dog. So what's the dog going to, he's not going to sign a contract that says, I'm going to sell my home, my mansion to somebody. Well, it got sorted out. It got sorted out. It's now a Hare Krishna temple. The Fisher Mansion is now Hare Krishna temple. I don't know the detail how it worked out. Everyone's serving someone is the point. If someone or something we're serving, because it's the nature of the soul. There's a supreme soul, and he's the master. He's the one being served. And then and all the rest of us are servants of the master. We have different positions and labels and nomenclatures, but we're all servants. Ultimately, Jiver Swarpayak Nityara Krishna Das. We're all servants of Krishna. So whatever our position may be of this lifetime, or during the course of a lifetime, it may change. Something. I become a student, I'm serving of my teacher, and then after I do that, I got a job and I'm serving my boss, and after that, I get married and I'm serving my wife, and after that, I'm serving the children. So the position of service may shift, but the thing that's constant is we're serving, because we're spirit souls, parts of the Supreme, meant for the service of the Supreme. So we can do all those things in the consciousness of serving the Supreme. That's the topmost system of yoga. So therefore, it's very important to know what's the Supreme, please, because I'm doing other things, and where's the connection of those other things to the source of those things? Because ultimately, I'm serving the source, even when I'm serving the intermediary. In bhakti, in yoga system, I'm serving the Supreme through the medium of, not just in name, but I actually know what is the Supreme. So that's what's going on here. The concluding parts of chapter 7, the beginning parts of chapter 8, to help us understand the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, that is the topmost yoga system. It's important. It's imperative. What is that the object, the place where I repose my focus of attention, my mind, my work, my words, my life, unto the Supreme? What's that? Who is that? So some definitions, so that it's not unclear. It at least potentially can become super clear. Super clear. And it's good, so therefore it's good to learn Bhagavad Gita, so you can become super clear. So you can do nice devotional service. It's not, fair to partly cloudy, but it's very clear. And not only principle based, but personal based, because of the relationship of a person and who is being served. Just like, many of you, we all have friends. then those persons who are friends, it's nice to know what they like. Here's an example. Tomorrow I'm going to have lunch with Yogeshwar Prabhu. Yogeshwar Prabhu is a very nice devotee. Very nice devotee. Very nice devotee. And I want to know what he wants for lunch. It doesn't, if my diet is something. And does it match him? I don't know. But I want to find out, because it should be nice. That's serving a person who I have a great deal of respect for and affection for. And that's what you do when you're with persons you have respect and affection for. So what to speak of the Supreme? It's good to know the characteristics of the Supreme. So these are just chapter 8, text number 1. It's just principles. So Krishna is saying, when you become very much devoted to me, then you understand me in these ways, and you're on the path to liberation. No more birth and death in this world. You're on your way to the spiritual world. So it's important to have a proper conception. I'm just going to take a peek at the next verse, and I'm going to end abruptly. The next verse, Krishna adds item number 6. The Lord of Sacrifice. So Adi, A-D-H-I, Adi Yagya. Who is the Lord of Sacrifice, and how does he live in the body? So the Lord of Sacrifice means the Supreme. An aspect, Paramatma, there's Atma, that's the Self, and Param Atma is the Supreme Self. Param Atma. And the Supreme Self is living within, and sacrifices are offered to the Supreme Self. So who is the Lord of Sacrifice? He's asking Krishna, but it's Krishna. And he's going to tell him, it's me. And I'm situated within the heart. An expansion of me is situated within the heart. So I'm situated within the heart. How do you live in the body, O Madhusudana? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? And that's a good question. How do we do anything properly at the time of death? And how do you prepare yourself for that inevitable? Because it's inevitable. I mean, it's the nature of this question. I don't want to get too much into it because that's next week. But like the whole of Srimad Bhagavatam, this other book that's this big sitting on your shelf, it's a big book. It starts with a question. There's a king who is about to die within 7 days because of this circumstance, and so he gives up his kingdom and turns his kingdom over to his eldest son, sits on the bank of the sacred river, invites all the sages to instruct him, what am I supposed to do? What is the duty of a man who knows they're about to die? Now most of us know we're going to die, but we don't know when. But he knew when. So Krishna is speaking same. There's a battle. It hasn't begun, but in battles people die. And how to stay fixed in consciousness of the Supreme Spirit when you're about to die? That's a challenge, because there's attachment to the body, there's the mind, there's pain, there's all the difficulties. That is not fun. And the loss of a person who's been with us for some time is not fun. So how do you prepare yourself? How to be fixed in Bhakti Yoga, which is the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, the how-to section of Bhagavad Gita. How to have that consciousness fixed properly. Not just at the time of death. You live your life fixed, and that's what happens at the time of death, fixed. By practice. some of us, I'm going to end with this. There's some of us in the room who, last weekend, it was Memorial Day weekend, many of us went to Gita Nagari. Next year, please come if you didn't come. If you did come, come again. We'll have a nice retreat in our farm community in Pennsylvania. And just today, I got a message, like a really very blissful, sweet exchange from the co-speaker, Garuda, and he said, you know, I had a blast, basically. He didn't even use that language. It was really a nice experience. Thanks so much for inviting me. When can we do something like this again? And when we were together, he shared that he sometimes dreams in Sanskrit, because he's a PhD in Sanskrit. Harvard University, PhD in Sanskrit. And he dreams sometimes. I mean, he's a nice, you know, American fellow, but he dreams in Sanskrit. So what your daytime is absorbed in, chances are when you're asleep, that there's going to be some absorption similar to what you were absorbed in during the daytime. So you practice yoga, where the mind and the senses are directed towards the Supreme. The chances are much better that at the time of death, that's where you're going, to the Supreme. And it's a choice of what you're going to practice. We're going to practice something, we're going to serve someone. You know, we don't have to stop things, we just spiritualize and redirect the things that we do in yoga towards the Supreme. The principle is very simple. And then, so back to this text, what's the Supreme? And these 6 different characteristics of the Supreme will help you set the dial. So you know what the Supreme is, instead of a vague idea. A vague idea is better than no idea, but a specific idea, that's better than a vague idea. And you're more likely to get there. Supposing you have a GPS, and you just say, you know, I'm going to Manhattan. Very good. Where? You got to put the address. No, it says, okay, 2nd Avenue. Okay, great. Where on 2nd Avenue? You get the idea. Yoga, it doesn't mean you have to be an intellectual genius or something. Just have to know what the destination is. And there's characteristics of the destination. And the person who occupies that destination, the yoga system is directed to a person, not just a thing or a place. There's a thing and there's a place, and they're resting on person. That's the highest teaching of yoga. Supposing someone doesn't know, then they can practice yoga where they don't know. Say karma yoga. Perform your prescribed duty and don't be attached to the results. There's results. What do? You offer the results to the Supreme. Okay, great. What's the Supreme? Fair to partly cloudy. Excuse me, can you be a little more specific than... Yeah. Keep going. Read chapter 7 and 8. And then the how-to portion of Bhagavad Gita, and you'll know. And then you can be a very focused practitioner. You get the right address in your GPS, and you'll get there. Even if you make a wrong turn, the GPS will take you back. Have a good GPS and have the destination. It's very simple. Okay, so I won't see you all next week, but some of you will be here again next week, probably.
Actually, Mark, we were just told that due to some renovation and planning, next week we're not having our program.
Really?
Yeah, we were informed of it. It wasn't my decision.
Okay. So when are you going to do verse 2?
Well, it would be the Saturday after Rath Yatra, actually. So
2 weeks.
3 weeks from
3
today.
weeks.
3 weeks from today, because we missed 2.
Okay. So do you know what Rath Yatra? You heard that word? No idea. It's a big festival. It's a big festival. It's a parade. I'm going to tell a little history. It's a parade down Fifth Avenue. The city of New York doesn't allow parades on Fifth Avenue. And this is a parade that goes down Fifth Avenue. And the history is, one of the little details of history is the person who secured the permit that was then extended the next year, and still Fifth Avenue, right?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yes. So, in our scriptures, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says what Rath Yatra is, a very long section, and the man that gives the permits, the final one that has to sign it, along with a committee that he works with, he was brought the description of what Rath Yatra is. It was the first one. So they had to know what's this thing. So here's the thing. And it says, in the mandate, it is to be on the most prominent street in the city.
That's street there.
And so he signed it. And so from Central Park down to Washington Square Park, parade down Fifth Avenue. And it's not just one cart, it's 3 carts. Big carts, not as tall as the skyscraper buildings, but they have a canopy that goes up and very colorful, and the Hare Krishna people run around dancing and singing and raising their arms and making a lot of noise, and 3 carts. Next week.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks from today.
2 weeks
Maharaj.
from today.
June 14th.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
June 14th, yeah.
Okay, he's got the ad. You can circulate them later. She wants one. Give her one. Anyone that wants one, raise your hand and he'll give you one. Right here. This.
Give one to Bhakti Meru.
I wanted to help. I'm okay.
Oh, you're just going to volunteer. You're going to pull the card or something.
Last year was my first Rath Yatra.
Really?
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. All the way to Washington Square Park. I couldn't believe they closed the whole park.
Meru's come a long way, Maharaj.
Wow. Did you go from the very beginning to Central Park down?
So like maybe 40
Columbus Circle?
42nd Street.
These days, the permit allows us to start in the 40s
Oh.
40, 50th
Oh.
and then go down.
Oh. Well, that's
Close
okay.
enough.
That's Fifth Avenue.
But it was an amazing experience. And then after 7, everything went back in Washington Square Park to normal.
Okay. So, I don't know how we got on. Okay, that's, in 3 weeks you'll hear verse number 2. And in between you can read Bhagavad Gita.
In between, we'll remember your teachings.
Yeah. You won't forget. You'll remember.
We'll be serving somebody.
Yes,
else.
we're serving somebody. And we make sure you got the right address.
GPS.
Yeah. Yeah. Good GPS system needs a good address. The right address. Okay, any comments or questions? I see Urugai's hand first. So you go ahead.
I just wonder if you're going to be able to take a part in the parade.
No. I'm going to be elsewhere, sorry. Next.
Maharaj, I was thinking the verse, Prabhupada's translation of the verse, we have 3 questions. And it's the way it reads in Krishna answering, the way the questions read, it's like Arjuna is almost in the second question, Arjuna is almost answering the first question. In the third question, he's almost answering the second question. And it almost seems to me like
Scripted.
Yeah, like it's like we all know the answer.
That's
so this
okay.
is like, and
He's asking for clarification.
Mm.
There are many passages. We just discussed one of those many passages where this is the Srimad Bhagavatam, this really big book, Srimad Bhagavatam. And the king, his name is Parikshit, and the speaker is Shukadev. Shukadev Goswami goes, wow, you know all these histories. When you're asking again, as if you're hearing it for the first time. It's ever fresh and new, and it's because that's the nature of that which is spiritual. It's ever fresh and new. Even you've heard it again and you heard it again. There's things that you hear when you hear it again and hear it again that you may not have understood and heard correctly from the very first time. So, Arjuna, in this circumstance, he's acting as if he's one of us, but he's not one of us. But he's in a state of consciousness induced by Krishna to act as if he's one of us. So he's asking things that you're going back to your question. He seems to already know, so why is he asking? And then he's asking it again, and he's asking it again. Why is that going on? It's for edification of us. And it's to, in the past time of learning as if he's hearing for the first time, is giving to the rest of us who have heard for the first time. Let me say, how many times somebody may have read Bhagavad Gita many times, and you read it again and you're hearing it, little details at least, as if it's for the first time. At least that's my experience. So, no harm. He may already know, he may not already know, that's okay. He's next and you're after him, because he's in the front row and I saw his hand first.
Thank you, Maharaj, for being here. It's such an honor that you're on 2nd Avenue. I was always asking Atma before, when is your teacher going to come? So, of course, I saw you
Okay.
at the previous. One question. I have a lot of respect for Atma and a lot of respect for you. If you can recall, what your first impression was when you saw Atma?
My first impression. You want an honest answer? I don't remember. You're off the hook. I don't remember. I don't remember. Honestly, I don't remember. Honestly, I don't remember. I have a bad memory. Some things I remember, but many things, details like this, I don't remember. But thanks for asking.
I tried.
Yes.
Maestro, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
If I remember correctly, you saying you define karma as dutiful action.
Yes.
Isn't that the same as, is that dharma?
Yes.
It's
Clarification. Dharma is dutiful action. Karma is acting according to dharma. So there's a theory, and then there's the action that's aligned with the theory. That's karma, is the action itself, using the senses, interacting with the object of the senses, in alignment with dharma. That's karma, and karma yoga is complete when you offer the result to the Supreme. Is that okay?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, good.
Gracias.
Gracias. All you folks in the back, anything from the back row back there? This is a test to see if you've been hearing and seeing. Ah, way in the back.
Maharaj, the concept of
Louder, voice.
the concept of Brahman seems very esoteric.
Why?
Krishna.
You can't see it, can't measure it, can't touch it. The senses don't go there, so that's esoteric. That's not what esoteric is.
Meaning it's hard to understand, like how to relate with reality here and what is Brahman, and
Okay.
if there's some example to relate?
Let me ask you, have you ever seen an electron? I haven't either. But we have confidence that electrons exist, at least if you pay your electric bill. I was in Virginia, and the place where I was, at 4 o'clock in the morning, the whole big area, because a power line fell, no electricity. I mean, I didn't realize how dependent we are upon electricity. We had candles, so we could see, basics, but so we haven't. There are things that we know exist, although we haven't seen them with our senses. So there's the eyes, and we have 5 working senses. Knowledge acquiring 5, working 5. That makes 10, and then the mind. So with the mind, or with these 10 senses, we haven't perceived the soul, or Brahman, or because it's another category. It's not matter. So how can you perceive with matter that which is not matter? Sorry, Charlie, it's not going to happen. Then is it knowable? That's the next question. Yes. How is it knowable? Sound. Shabda in Sanskrit, sound. And it's knowable by sound. And it's also knowable by symptoms. Let me give you an example. Here, 2 examples. Out-of-body experience. They have an acronym. You know what that is? OBE.
Yeah.
So when there's trauma, sometimes people observe, they report, they were in a dead condition, under cardiac arrest in an operating room by all the instruments. The heart stopped, which means blood doesn't go to the brain, and the nervous system indicates the nervous system shut down. That means dead. And then the person, by sometimes they're revived by electrodes placed on their chest, and they simulate the signal for the heart to pump, and the heart starts pumping again. And they live, and they tell the experience of their floating up above the operating table, watching the whole thing happen. Which means, listen, if they remember, they can remember what they heard. This physician said to the nurse said to the main surgeon, the conversation they reported exactly as it happened. They have memory, that's the mind. They had visual acuity and memory and auditory acuity, but the body was dead. So you tell me, what's that? And one name for it is Brahman. But he didn't see it. The surgeon and the nurse and the other doctors, they didn't see this guy floating up there. And then so many examples like that. OBE. It's just we'll get you. So it's esoteric because with our senses we can't perceive, but we know that it exists through sound, through scripture, that sound vibration can tell us that it exists, and we can discern the symptoms. Just like we can discern the symptoms of electricity, stick your fingers into a socket and see what happens. You experience electricity, although you can't see the electron. They're symptoms by which Brahman can be known, that can be observed on this plane, the physical plane. But we don't see the Brahman. Therefore, it's esoteric because you can't see it with your senses, but you can know of it, and by sound. And as you become more proficient in hearing spiritual sound, I'll say it twice. As you become more proficient in hearing spiritual sound, you can understand that which is esoteric more clearly. And you become situated in that consciousness, esoteric consciousness or Krishna consciousness, by the practice of hearing from the right source on a regular basis. then that's no longer esoteric. It's palpable.
Thank you, Maharaj. That explains the Brahman as self, but Supreme Brahman, is that a way to easily really understand in
Yeah.
self-analysis?
Yeah, you're inviting me to say something that's like 201, or maybe even 301. And so just do it simply. But there's knowing of something and there's experiencing that something that you know of. And the Vedas, specifically Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, are not just knowing about, it's not just information about, but it's the experience itself. That's the sound vibration of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. It's meant to, the Sanskrit word is darshan, give one a vision of. Not just information about, but the direct, but it's on the spiritual platform. And is it possible to become situated on the spiritual platform? Absolutely. Well, what are you waiting for? Well, I got some business here on this platform. I'm attached to stuff. So let me do stuff, and then I'll get around to getting to the spiritual platform. Or, so it takes some time. It takes cultivation. But it's certainly, it's not just information access, but it's experience access. And then you could say, well, how do I know? And then the answer is, stick around and do spiritual practice carefully, and you'll experience two things: detachment from matter and attachment to spirit. More. Not like 100, not to 10, but something that's not a zero either. You can experience. We're in New York City. We're in 26 Second Avenue, and there's cars passing by, and da 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 da. So we're not oblivious to the world. We're not identifying with it. We're moving about the world, and as much as spiritual consciousness becomes developed, cultivated strongly by hearing process, then that becomes your experience while you're aware of the cars going by, and we're on 26 Second Avenue until we get up and walk out of here and do something else. The Krishna consciousness goes with you. 26 Second, the traffic outside doesn't. Okay?
So does Brahman mean God?
God, Brahman has different meanings. The common meaning, the generic spirit. There's matter, and there's spirit. And so in the category of spirit, there's us, we're also spirit, and then there's God, the Supreme Spirit, whom we're part of. Tiny. And then there's not so tiny, like unlimitedly great spirit. That's also, and then there's a nice adjective, Supreme Spirit, para, Brahman. Para means supreme or spiritual. Para Brahman.
And then is the Supreme like spirit? Like we're part of the Supreme Spirit.
Yes, that's right. So we're little Brahmans, and there's a Supreme Brahman.
Yes, so all of us are.
We're part of the Supreme.
Yes, and the whole of us is Supreme.
No.
No, why?
The whole, here's why. So here's a piece of paper. Supposing I take this piece of paper, I'm not going to do it, but rip it into little pieces and throw it on the floor over here. The original piece of paper is no longer. It's little scattered pieces on the floor over here. That's material. On the spiritual, the unlimited spiritual whole can expand himself unlimitedly but not diminished. Do it again. The Supreme expands. Here's a Sanskrit. Om Purnamadak Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. What does that mean? It means that the Supreme is unlimited and he can expand himself unlimitedly into so many units, but he's not reduced. He still remains Purnam.
He still remains the same, but he can.
And those expansions are different.
Yes.
So some are tiny, some are plenary, some are equal to him. Those kind of expansions,
But not the same.
but he doesn't change.
He doesn't change.
He doesn't change. That's a supreme. There's is one of a kind. We can't do that.
We cannot go back.
No, we can go back. We're meant to go back.
Yeah.
But when you go back doesn't mean I become the supreme. Means I'm still this tiny little fragmental spark.
Piece of the supreme.
Just like you take a drop of water, put it back in the ocean, it's still a drop. You go in the ocean. And then there's the ocean.
But then where's the ocean?
Where is the ocean?
Yes.
Well, the ocean is over that way. But the supreme is like the ocean, and whereas he's within, as his expansion within, and he has his own abode in the spiritual world. You can get a GPS and find out his address and go there.
We cannot.
You can.
Yeah.
You can go there. Bhakti yoga. That's the Bhagavad Gita. How to go there. That's this how-to section. He says the destination, then he says how to get there.
But then why not the drop of water inside the ocean?
I don't understand your question.
I think the question is, I think the misunderstanding might be, if you're going back to Krishna, does that not mean that you become Krishna?
No, we don't become, because the part doesn't become the whole. That's a misconception. The part doesn't become the whole. The part is a part.
Yes, but why we are not inside the ocean?
Okay. Yeah. We have forgotten. We have a connection. I'm not you and you're not me. We eternally, not just corporeally, but spiritually,
Yes.
we have separate identities. And then there's a Supreme that has his separate identity. We're part of that Supreme. I'm not part of you, you're not part of me. We're part of the Supreme, but being again connected to the part of the Supreme. I'm eternally part of the Supreme, but just in consciousness of that connection, a loving relationship. It takes two for love.
Yes.
You can't love your hand.
I can. My hand is part of me.
Yeah, your hand is part of you.
Yes.
Yeah, the part of the body.
Yes.
But so there's the object and the abode of love and the object of love. So God or the Supreme is the object. That's yoga. Yoga system. I went through those first 6 chapters. All yoga means, the Sanskrit word yoga means to link with or connect with. What? So there's me and there's the object I'm connecting with. And the connecting with is the Supreme. And let's identify the Supreme. And I don't become the Supreme. I am eternally part of, qualitatively like, but not the Supreme. And I don't become the Supreme. I maintain my position as part of, in full consciousness of being part of, in a loving relationship.
Yeah.
That's
But
nice.
then-
Isn't that nice?
That's very nice, but then why we are part of the Supreme.
But we forgot. We got covered by ignorance.
Yes, we forgot that we're part
Yeah,
of
we went to sleep.
the Supreme. We're so blind. We're still so blind.
In Sanskrit it's avidya, in English it's ignorance. Ignorance covers knowledge of who we really are. And to restore who we really are, just peel away the ignorance. But it's too easy than just say peel away the ignorance, because we're attached to it.
But then
We're attached to
I
that.
understand, but then why the whole of us is not the Supreme?
Oh.
Oh.
Because we're eternally fragmental. Mame Vangsa, it's right in Bhagavad Gita. Eternally, we're part.
Uh-huh.
The part doesn't become the whole. The part is part of the whole.
Okay.
The part doesn't become the whole. The whole is the whole. Just that nice example of a piece of paper. I can't distribute myself and stay the same. But the Supreme distributes himself and stays the same.
Okay.
So we're one of those little parts, eternally. Not once upon a time, we were the Supreme, we went to sleep and now we're thinking otherwise, but wake up and you're the Supreme. Not, eternally, we're the part. But it's nice, because that's love. Love is eternal. Okay. Then it takes two, not just one.
Why?
Why? Love is an exchange.
If
You want to see, you think there's love that's just one?
yes, if it's unconditional love.
But unconditional love is, I have love for an object, the Supreme, and I don't place any conditions. Supposing he says, he embraces me. That's nice. Supposing he neglects me. That's nice. Supposing he tramples me under his feet. That's nice.
Yes, that's unconditional.
Yeah. So then there's two. The lover, and the beloved. That's love. An exchange between two. Just try to understand. You're trying.
I'm trying.
I appreciate that you're trying. And it's love is two. There's a oneness in selflessness, but there's still two. And in reciprocation from the beloved, there's the acceptance of that love, and it's unconditional. But it's love. It's two. It's an exchange of feeling and service, and giving and taking, and no one's keeping score. Isn't that nice? I like it.
Yes.
I don't know. Why we cannot just give unconditional love?
Because of ignorance.
I understand that. People are ignorant.
Okay.
Because they want to receive something instead of give.
Yes.
Like only if you're God you can give.
Okay. So when that ignorance is gone, when it's wanting for me is gone, and it's now selfless, it's still a relationship of love. There's the object, the subject. It's like grammar. There's a verb.
I understand, but if you are the whole,
No, I'm not the whole. I'm the part, eternally. And I like it. I understand you're not wishing, in some prideful way. You want, I want to be the whole. You want reality.
I don't want reality.
You don't want reality. What do you want?
I want to live in my dream world.
Live in your dream world.
Yeah.
She's studying Vedic astrology.
Vedic astrology.
Studying.
She's studying.
Really?
No, I'm a Vedic astrologer.
Astrologer? Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
I do see people's charts.
Okay. Well, that's one of the systems of the Vedas. It's one of 6 systems. But all the Vedas, here's a nice Bhagavad Gita verse. The purpose of the Vedas, Vedaishta Sayurvair Aham Eva Vedam, the purpose of the Vedas is to know Krishna.
Who's Krishna?
He's the Supreme. He's the source of everything. That from which everything comes, that's the Supreme. And I'm part of that which has come from, and so are you. We're in the same boat. We're parts of the source, but we're not the source. Okay. Lively discussion. I wish I had such a discussion the first time I ever came to a gathering like this. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, it's my first time coming here as well, so.
Okay. Somehow, well, we don't have the book table here, but we have to make sure she gets a Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah,
And we
Maharaj.
can do
We will
Okay.
take care of that.
Okay, I'm sure. Look at this, it's 7 o'clock. The 7 o'clock bell already rang 5 minutes ago.
There's no bell, Maharaj.
There's no bell?
That's why I didn't hear it.
I think we're going to end.
Figuratively or literally.
I brought with me some Mahaprasadam, besides whatever you guys have as your evening prasadam. So those of you by the door, don't go away yet. I'm going to give you some Mahaprasadam offered to the deities at the New Jersey temple. Here we go. Okay.
So Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you all for
Nice that you're here.
being here this evening. Maybe so, except for devotees